Hey everybody, welcome to Algo Expert. In this video, we're going to answer the following behavioral interview question. Describe a challenging project that you worked on. Why was it challenging? What was your role in the project? How did you deal with the various difficulties of the project? So, throughout my software engineering career, I've certainly worked on a lot of challenging projects. One that comes to mind here is a particularly challenging project. This was the very last project that I ever worked on when I was a software engineer at Google. The reason this project was particularly challenging is manifold. In other words, there are a lot of reasons for it was challenging. First of all, it was a large project. The surface area of the project was 2 times, if not 3 times, the surface area of any other project I'd worked on. I worked on a front-end team, and so, a good way to quantify that was how many new pages does a project involve, and this project involved basically twice the amount of existing pages we had on our UI. So it was a very large project. It was also very new, and I say new in scare quotes because specifically, we were going to be hitting a new API, and that's kind of a big deal on Google Cloud Platform, which was the organization that I was working on. When there's a new API, it doesn't happen all the time, and we were going to have a new API for our particular product. On top of that, we had very little time to complete this project, so not only was it large, but we had very little time. To put things into perspective, most previous projects that I had worked on, we had at least 2 quarters, maybe 2.5 quarters to work on them. Here, this project was announced to us at the very end of Q4 in 2018, so like early December, and we had to launch the product or the feature at the end of Q1 or early Q2 of 2019. So we basically only had like a little over a quarter to complete this project. And then the final thing that was really hard about this project was the fact that we were only 3.5, because we had an intern coming in, front-end software engineers on my team in the New York office, which is where I was. And with only 3.5 engineers, we would never have been able to do this project, or 3 engineers if you don't count the intern, who hadn't even joined the team when we first heard about this project. So we were going to need other front-end engineers. And it so happened that there was a team in South Korea, the South Korea office that Google has, that was part of the organization that I was in, and they were going to join us. But that meant that we had to onboard a brand new team of engineers whom we had never met before, who had never worked on Google Cloud Platform before, and who were based in South Korea, which was 14 hours ahead of the United States New York office. So a lot of complications, a very, very challenging project. Now, my role on the project was to lead the project. I was basically the project lead or the tech lead of the project. And the way that I decided to approach it was I started out by scoping out the entire project. We had heard whispers of the project at the end of Q4 2018, like I said, and so I started documenting everything that I heard, any meeting that I went to where we were learning more about the project from product managers and a few other people, I was writing down, and I started to scope out the work that we were going to have to do. And then, when in early Q1 2019, we actually went to South Korea for basically an entire week to meet this new team of engineers and to do a big design sprint to really scope out the entire feature as a team. I took a bunch of notes. We had this huge running doc with basically everything that we needed to know about this feature. And I made it a point throughout the week to basically ask every single question that I predicted we would have in the future. I kind of pulled from my experience on previous projects, remembered what are things that you tend to run into as an engineer when you're developing a feature. Let's clarify all of those things right now, right off the bat, so that we have all this visibility. And that turned out to actually be pretty successful, that trip. And so then when it came time to actually just distribute the work and get to work, what I did was I tried to be as granular as possible without going too granular. So I would scope out like, this page, that page, very like logically separated sub features of the entire feature, and anything that required heavy context in our code base, I assigned to the engineers in New York who had been working on our code base for a long time. And anything that didn't require that much context, of course, everything does require a little bit of context, but the things that required the least amount of context, I assigned to the engineers who were working out of the South Korea office, since they were newer to the code base. Then I also leveraged the fact that I was hosting an intern. I mentioned that before. I'm a firm believer that you never want to give an intern like critical work that is going to be blocking a launch. However, here the nice thing was that this project was huge, and we had kind of picked the sub features that were critical to the launch of this project and the ones that were less critical, that were more like nice to haves, and I had my intern work on those nice to haves. That way we were kind of killing two birds with one stone, providing my intern with a great experience and a good project, but also a project that happened to be relevant to this, greater challenging project. And then otherwise, apart from that, I acted as the glue between everybody else. So I did all of the kind of administrative work and the work of communicating requirements and progress and everything across all the teams. I made the sacrifice of being the person communicating with the South Korea team, in a weekly meeting. So I would stay pretty late at the office in the New York City office, which was fine with the rest of my team. We had kind of established that as a thing, that I would come in maybe a bit later so that I could have a meeting and FaceTime, over the wire with the team in South Korea. And it turned out that the project, ended up doing really well and succeeding. And I suppose on that note, I should add that, not only did we scope out the project in a smart way and we pushed back on anything that really seemed like it was going to be impossible to create or to build out in time, but we also laid out some good, clear success metrics. We laid out what are the things that we really need to accomplish in order to deem this project a success. What are the things that will fall into the nice-to-have category, the type of work that I assigned to my intern? And it just worked really nicely, and it ended up being a very successful project, and probably, the project that I'm most proud of that I worked on at Google.